3 years ago, a band I was in called Brilliant Mistakes put out our only record called Outsiders. And why I wanted to tell you about that today is because I think it ties in with some of the other videos I've made about sharing my creative process, but hopefully inspiring you to get started or continue on your path. So the drummer and I, Chris McAvoy, we're in a band called Dark Horses. And over about a 2 year period, we wrote, gosh, maybe 30 songs, played shows locally in Atlanta, and life as it does happened, and bands as they do disintegrated, and the band fell apart. His life was happening, my life was happening. And a couple years later, we played in another band together where I played guitar. He was playing drums, and I bought an audio interface, an Apollo 8XP, and we just were toying around with it. He had this two-car garage out behind his house, and it was just with this idea of like, hey, let's just try this out because we're both, while we'd worked in studios before, we had not really done a lot outside of like 4-track recording personally outside of a studio environment. So we hooked this audio interface up to a laptop and we recorded a song called Stories We Tell. That night, uh, we got the keeper take and like the second or third take. We'd actually never played the song before. I thought by bringing out a song that Chris had never heard, that we'd be less precious with it, and that it would be a good jumping off point versus a song that him and I used to play a lot together. So that night we recorded Stories We Tell. It was a eureka moment. We were super excited, and it's what lit the fire under us to keep going and record the songs that we had from Dark Horses, and that we were kind of creating in jam rehearsals. Um, and why I think it's important to talk about these things is because I do think there's a through line. Sharing my journey, which I think is important, and hopefully maybe sharing this inspires you to keep going or to get started. Because I do think the act of doing things is important, even if it's just for yourself. So we start this record, we record it. We had a couple different bass players that we had. Bob Goen, who was the bass player in Brilliant Mistakes, caught on, I think, a couple songs in, and then he re-recorded the first couple that we had. And then Michael Cotter joined, and he added his guitar stuff, which was great as well. But we had a lot of starts and stops along the way. We'd actually sent the record to Kentucky to be mixed by a studio that I was really fond of. Um, and I did the amateur thing where I sent about 9 million guitar tracks on every song and really poor notes, which don't ever do that if you're in that position. It's not the mix engineer's job, to decipher what is important to you. And so we set up the mix engineer to fail. So I'll own that. But we got the mixes back, and it was not what we expected. And we were kind of devastated because at this point we're about a year in, and we thought we were like at the finish line. Well, at the same time, we met this guy named Michael Cotter, who ended up being a lead guitar player. And so it kind of worked out perfect because he was able to redo a bunch of guitar solos that I had bungled, or like the same guitar solo that I do 10 different times. He was able to add his own flavor. So it actually, the extra time paid off. We had John Graboff add pedal steel to 2 songs, which was really great. And then we got to mix the record ourselves because Michael had a background that we could actually do that. And it was a really great experience. We were finishing the record, and we thought, wouldn't it be cool to put it out on January 1st? Now, here's the funny thing. If you're watching this or if you're a musician, there's like a school of thought that is very prevalent and accurate, that if you're trying to get playlisted, don't put out songs on weekends, don't put it out on holidays, and really like at the end of the year, don't put it out in December and really the first part of January. There's like a whole like blackout period that like is like, don't do that unless you're Mariah Carey, I guess, putting out a banger. But we weren't doing that. We were putting out indie rock songs. And so we put out the record on January 1st because it meant something to us and we thought it was cool. And I was inspired to do this video because all the memories on my social media have come up about the record that we put out 3 years ago. And it's crazy like how much has changed in just 3 years. The band broke up about a year and a half ago ish when we started recording the second record, which that's a whole other video. unto itself. But even though we did everything wrong, even though we released a record on a holiday during a period where like nobody really cares about new music because they're with their family, they're partying, they're resolution focused, whatever it is. Well, so are we. And I'm here to give you permission that if it feels good, put it out whenever you want to. Don't worry about it. I have, had some songs that have done well and had 20,000 plays organically, and then I've had put out some songs that it takes a while to get to 1,000, and none of them have got playlisted. Me and you are probably way different. You're probably great, um, but it's not all about the algorithm. It was important to us creatively to put that out. And I think that's okay. Not everything's about getting on a playlist or, the optimal time. It's a creative pursuit for you. It's something that means something to you. And when you are ready to share it, is when it's ready to be shared. And now there are consequences of that, like the playlisting, the algorithms, and all that stuff. And you just got to live with that. But I think if you are into the kind of music I'm into, or if you're into independent music, you're probably well aware of what comes with that. So, anyways, here's to Brilliant Mistakes, first and maybe only record, Outsiders, that came out 3 years ago today. So, may all your creative endeavors be as ham-handed and badly released as what we did, but mean as much. So, thanks to the guys in the band who really poured a ton of time, sweat, and tears into finalizing and getting that record across the finish line. That record means a whole lot. And I probably wouldn't be doing solo music had it not been for Brilliant Mistakes, because I was playing shows to support that. And then I started doing solo shows. Solo shows led to, hey, why are you called Brilliant Mistakes? I'm like, that's a great question, because it's just you on stage. And I think there's a lot of great examples of artists who have monikers or go by like a band name. I think that's great. As I was playing North Georgia, um, people didn't really understand what Brilliant Mistakes was. And since we were a band, and since I wasn't playing with the band, it didn't make a ton of sense to keep going with that name as I continued to do shows. But I would not be doing what I'm doing today had it not been for that. Had it not been for us just on a lark, let's record a song, let's try this. So if you're at a point where you bought the camera and you don't know if you should make the video, if you're at the point where you bought the gardening book, but you haven't planted the seeds, it's never too late. It's never too late to get started. And it's okay to be an absolute beginner, because I think that's freaking rad. Have a great day. See all the cars on the highway, chasing something they don't know. Find yourself somewhere lost in the great unknown. All those destinations, it's been a while since you called home. Now these stories, chapters that we close, tell ourselves anything to keep us going down the road. Oh. Grew up 'cause we had to. Choices are for those on a different path. They called us so sounds better than little adults. And all those expectations, what we feel, it ain't bigger than what we love. Now those times, they don't seem so bad. It's got that story, but you know nothing lasts that long. these old scars, they don't tell you much. It's a good story if you got the time. Ain't no reason to be who you ain't. God, it feels great to be alive. Oh, be alive.